What's up, gamers? Today's video is lights, camera, action, baby. But not really camera. I already did a video about the camera in my game like a little while ago. And not really action. I guess I did a video about like the combat. I guess that's that. This video is about lights. It's about lighting. It's a lighting video. We're going to be going over some cool lighting effects and how I got those in the game. In my previous video, I think I said I was going to do the Plague Doctor next, but the thing about that is she's one of the main bosses of the game, and she's very important. And so I've been really cranking on trying to get that boss fight like super clean and super polished. I mean, it's gone through a ton of revisions. Her attacks have changed a bunch of times, so there's a ton of stuff to talk about once it's time. But I didn't want to like release like a half-baked video where the end result was like, look at the Plague Doctor in like a 73% finished state, and here's some of the attacks she used to have, what she have now, I don't know. I thought I should hold off on giving you that update until it was really, fully ready. But you know what is ready? Some cool lighting stuff. I was talking with an environmental artist that I'm working with named Mengo. I was working with a different environment artist previously, but actually a lot of comments on my first environmental art video were that it didn't really fit the art style that was established by the sprite work. And I had kind of started to feel that way too. The more I looked at it, the more I felt like there was some kind of weird mismatch between the two. On the flip side, on the much more positive note, the new artist I'm working with is fantastic. He's really great to work with, and I really like the style he's bringing, and I think it really is matching well with Fur's sprite work. That's a great fit. I was talking to him about lighting effects in the game because he wanted to know, for some of the mock-ups and some of the concept art he was doing, should he be working in modern lighting effects like gradient and fog and stuff like that into the concept art, or were we sticking with like a retro style? And I much prefer the modern combined with the retro look. In my camera video, people pointed out that there's a guy making a game called Astortion, whose camera solution was like identical to mine. They are literally the same camera. And so they said I should check out his stuff. And I went and watched a couple of his videos. His videos are super good, by the way. If you're watching this but haven't seen his stuff, go check him out. Let me look up what his name is instead of just saying check out the Astortion guy. All right, yeah, his name is Artificial. I think that his YouTube channel is Artificial with an H in it. Yeah, his stuff is really good. And he also called his combination of 2D pixel perfect movement and modern effects on top of that the modern pixel style, and I think that's also what I want to do. And so let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. Here are a couple of concept art pieces that Mengo sent me. So here is the base layer he sent, and by the way, it's super rough. He told me that he didn't spend too long on getting this drawn together. He just wanted a rough idea for what the forest might look like with no special lighting, just him doing colors. And then he added like this soft light version. You can see the like subtle differences with just adding some soft lighting coming from the back and over top of the front. And here's a concept piece of that same area, but with fog and some glow around the lantern. Here's one that's like pretty subtle, but it's just like being able to dynamically change the lighting of like the background. And so basically he said we just, if we want to do that style, it's actually not too complicated, but I need to get our sprite work and all our art assets reacting appropriately to lighting, and then also give myself some ability to add some other fancy effects on top of that. So the first thing I wanted to tackle was glow, because I've used glow in previous projects before, and it always involves using like a world environment node, setting that up. And for one, I thought it was going to be a little bit complicated using that world environment system with my like crazy multi-viewport camera system. I was actually wrong about that. Actually, the issue is that it seems like there's some kind of bug with the system. From looking around online, I couldn't find a definitive answer, but it seems like trying to use like canvas space in the world environment just blacks out the screen. And I tried debugging this for a long time. I read everywhere, but check it out. This is what the game looks like with the cool new lighting effects. See you later. Peace off. I abandoned that once I couldn't figure out what the problem was, in hopes that my own custom solution would be better anyway. So I built a glow effect system that sits on top of all the cameras. It's a shader over screen space, so it looks at every pixel on the screen and then applies effects on top of that. So I built one for applying glow effects on top of the screen. It samples every pixel on screen and then looks at its color value. And if its color value is higher than 1, then it tries to apply a glow. So I can go into a sprite, tell it, hey, this thing's red value isn't 1, it's 1.1. So then it would get 0.1 of a red glow added to it in that screen space shader. And that's like a little bit complicated to talk through, but it's actually pretty obvious when you look at it. So here's like a super rough version of what it looks like with just throwing a red glow on top of it. And you'll notice there are a few key issues with that. One is the red glow on top of the sprite is like very obvious. It just looks like it got tinted red. And then secondly, the glow is like completely unnoticeable. It feels like there's just like a tiny 1 pixel red outline around the dude. It doesn't make any sense. And that's because I am sampling screen space and my screen is like 2K. And so looking at which pixels around 1 one pixel are glowing to figure out if that pixel should have like an effect from it, means you're only getting these tiny little 1 pixel borders on like a 2K screen. It doesn't really give you a sense of the effect because you're doing such a small sample. I was like, what if I just extend the sample range? What if I sample around that 1 pixel like in a much wider margin? And so I did it with like just looking 15 pixels in every direction. And as you could obviously guess, that creates like this star shape because I'm not sampling in like a circle around the pixel or even in a square around the pixel. I'm just sampling in each cardinal direction, and that is creating this like star shape glow effect, which I'll be honest, doesn't look that terrible. Like, if that's how everything glowed in the game, it would look bad. But if like maybe some stars at night had this kind of very faint star-shaped glow or that sort of thing, I think that could look really sick. But this also wasn't the effect I was going for. So then I tried, rather than, you know, just sampling in each cardinal direction, I tried sampling in a block around and then lowering the impact of the pixel based on the distance from it to basically create like a fall off in a roughly circular shape around the pixel. And so I did this in a loop, which I expected to be pretty expensive. I didn't think it would be scalable to sample in like a huge pixel radius for every pixel on the screen. I thought that shader would be really intensive and slow things down, but I just wanted to see what it looked like basically and then figure out if it's worth faking it. I did that and it looks not that great. And I thought maybe I should try increasing the sample size and then decreasing the impact of any particular pixel, just playing around with stuff to see if this kind of lighting effect could work. And I not only crashed my editor, but I also crashed my entire computer. So that's, so I think the takeaway there is don't have every pixel on the screen sampling like 50,000 other pixels on the screen all at once every frame, which maybe you didn't need anyone to tell you not to do that, but I needed someone to tell me not to do that. When it was like the smaller sample size, it didn't look that great anyway. And so then I tried increasing the impact that the glowing pixels could have and then making the glow a lot more sensitive. You didn't have to go that far above the value for it to start glowing. And then that created what I like to call mega glow, where every pixel on the screen is basically glowing. You can check it out here. It's so funny. And then I tried toning down the mega glow while also keeping somewhat of the star-shaped influence. And you can see another intense star-shaped glow. And that didn't really do what I wanted either. And so I was like, okay, doing the screen space sampling doesn't really make that much sense for this pixel art game in the first place. So why don't I try just sampling from the viewport texture that's produced by the viewports, because those are producing like a 640 by 360 image, and I can do a much better job sampling those textures, and I could even downscale those textures so that they are artificially like blended, make them, you know, blurry by having, you know, a blurrier image that's getting sampled. I could do some like dynamic stuff like that. And this was a bit of a buggy process getting it working, and you can see some excellent bugs here. For a while, the viewport was just upside down, but also displaying normally at the same time. I found that very funny. You can see this example where the glow effect is basically ghosting to the other side of the screen. There's like a ghost version of Rungtunk just hiding over on the side. And honestly, that like ghost glow of Rungtunk that's nowhere near him is kind of spooky. Fuck, what was I saying? But yeah, that didn't quite work. And then we got like this crazy pixel moshing stuff. I don't even know what was happening with this one. I kind of had to like delete a bunch of stuff that I changed and rewrite it. But after going through a lot of errors, I got this very subtle glow effect that I think looks pretty nice. It's very subtle. It doesn't extend beyond the edges of the original sprite that much, but that's a lot more tweakable now because I'm sampling on a much smaller texture rather than sampling my whole 2K screen. I think this effect is going to work a lot better. I'm going to be able to do a lot more of the things we want to do with those kind of subtle glows. And also, I was really tired of spending time debugging glow effect stuff. So I figure it probably wasn't worth it putting that much more time in the system when I can just debug anything that pops up when I'm actually trying to implement some environment art the way, you know, Mengo envisions it. And so having the glow working was good enough for me. What I really was excited about was getting the dynamic lighting effects working. And so the first thing I wanted to do was figure out how I could do some kind of like normal maps, both for Isadora and for enemies and for assets, stuff like that. And in case you don't know, a normal map is essentially, it's another image that tells the game how the original image reacts to light. It's like, for example, you know, my arm here, it's like, I have a key light that's lighting me for this video. And you can see the light is hitting my arm. So this part of my arm is lit up, and then this part of my arm is in the shadow, right? A normal texture, if this was a game sprite, it would just be a 2D image. It wouldn't have like this three-dimensional information to tell it that that's how it should be lit. So a normal map would be a second image that is the same as the arm, but it would have this side of my arm as like a bunch of light pixels, and this side of my arm is a bunch of dark pixels. That's the really basic idea of what a normal map is. It just tells a sprite how to interact with light. And I found this really cool tool called Lighter. I think it's supposed to be pronounced lighter, but this word don't got a H in it. Also, there's an A in it. I think it's supposed to be lighter. The name aside, the tool is really cool because it generates normal maps for sprite sheets. So I just plugged my Isadora sprite sheet into lighter and configured the details of how I wanted her sprite to interact with light. You can change like how bumpy the normal map is supposed to be, how much the light should come off of it, how smooth the light should fall off between like pixels on the sprite sheet, whether the sprite sheet should even be pixelated in the first place. So I got to mess with all these settings and generate a normal map for Isadora. And I also did it with like some trees and some enemies just to see what these normal maps would look like in game. Let's do like a little before and after because it's really cool. So here is me putting a light in the game and just having it shine on Isadora and a tree. It's just default, no normal maps, no nothing. And you can see it looks awful. It just basically is overlaying some brightness onto Isadora and the tree. But once I apply the normal maps to Isadora and the tree and then put the light in the scene, you can see it looks way more dynamic. It feels like the light is actually being cast on Isadora. You can see the way the light like falls into the tree leaves and like illuminates the trunk and stuff. It looks really, really clean. There were some complications with getting the lighting working with my like my snail lasagna camera, where having a light on one layer doesn't interact with sprites that aren't on that layer. Every light has to clone itself across all the different viewports. But this actually did give me the opportunity for the lighting system to tell it, hey, fall off. If the light is in like the very like background, then it won't be casting as much light. It won't have as much of an impact on the characters in the foreground. So as the light traverses the layers of the camera, it can fall off, which I think creates a pretty cool effect. Anyway, now that I've completely lost my train of thought, it really gives us some cool effects that we can do with these lights. So here is a sample of me just essentially setting up like what feels like 3 street lights. They're not attached to any physical object or whatever. They're just like lights in the scene. And you can see how as Isadora runs under them, she gets like illuminated in like an interesting way. And you can see how the lights interacting with the trees are really cool. And if I like jump and dash through them, the way the light like falls off of Isadora, this whole scene feels really cool. And this scene is super incomplete. I mean, it's just like my like builder block tile set with no background and some trees, and it looks this good. So I built some sample scenes to show off how cool the lighting can really be now that we have all these new features in. Here is a scene that actually has a background and has some assets and has an enemy in there. And I have a moving light that's like casting the light as it moves around. And you can see how it impacts both Isadora sprite and the enemy sprites as it's like moving across them. It feels really cool. Here is some lights attached to just some lanterns in the scene. Just some basic lanterns that I just slapped a light inside of so that it can cast that light. Those feel really cool. And I used this like a canvas modulation system that's built into Godot by default that lets you change the like brightness and the colors of the screen as a whole, which lets me simulate darkness. By modulating the screen's brightness down, suddenly it feels darker, and then you use the light to illuminate characters in the scene, and we can even do that dynamically too. So here's a scene. In the original spotlight scene that I showed you, I had modulated it basically to nighttime so that the spotlights would show up, but here I built this just as like a cool little test of what something could look like, where the scene looks somewhat normal because the canvas modulation is just set to daytime and the lights aren't very strong, but then the scene changes where the modulation tweens down into nighttime and the lanterns like kick on, and seeing this like dynamic change in the lighting is really exciting. I think it's super cool. And I think between my kind of sketchy glow system and this dynamic light system using the normal maps and being able to generate them for all the assets and the enemies, I feel like we got some really cool lighting effects ready for the game that we can plug into the different pieces of environment art to really make stuff pop. I can also throw these sort of lighting effects onto like enemy attack smears or particles, those sort of stuff, to make those a lot more dynamic. I might do that so I can show it to you in the video, or I might forget.
Oh, God!
And if I forgot, then you can call me a poopy, stinky doo-doo head in the comments. So, and then the other things that Mengo talked about with his concept art, stuff like fog, stuff like gradients and those kind of things, those aren't necessarily related to lighting. I think I can do fog with either some procedural noise. I did fog in the original version of Isadora's Edge, the Game Jam version. That had some procedural noise fog along the bottom of the screen just to like add some dramatic flair. So the fog system has been in the game since the very beginning. That's not something I need to touch. And then any other particles or any other things I want to add as some post-processing effects or anything to just like spruce it up, I'll show those off when I add them. But now we have these cool new dynamic lighting effects that we can use animations while we're building the level, and we have like a glow effect we can use for stuff. So I'm kind of rambling at the end of this video because I'm really bad at finishing videos. They usually devolve into nonsense, but I'm not gonna let that happen this time, baby. I'm fully in control of my own destiny. But yeah, so if you like the content, if you made it to the end of the video, then go ahead and hit me with that like and that subscribe, leave a comment, asking me questions or leaving suggestions. I've started making shorts, both for YouTube and for TikTok, where I answer questions or respond to suggestions in the comments. So if you have a question you want answered, or you have a suggestion for the game that you want me to take seriously, just leave it in the comments down there and I might pick it for one of those shorts. I just thought it would be a really easy and quick way for me to engage with the community without needing to like produce it in this long form video and then get it edited and then wait for it to come out and then hope you see it. You know, the shorts are a lot easier way to get in touch. I also respond to like every comment that gets left on my video. So if you want to talk to me directly, just leave a comment, baby. It's easy peasy. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you. Let's take this video out with something cool. Whoa, look at this thing that I prepared for you guys. Isn't it cool? Whoa, it's got crazy lighting stuff. Whoa, I'm out of control. Okay, I think I just gave us a little lightheaded. All right, peace. Thanks for watching.